in this session, we are going to create a solution for this sample question. So we are required to create a package session 5, then create a class square inside this package. This class should have a double attribute called side length, which is initialized by its constructor. And it should have corresponding setter and getter for that attribute. Then finally, we should have a getArea method. So I'm listing below here, I'm listing how to write a class step by step. We need to create package, class, framework, and create a main method. This we have been doing all the time. And some class may not need main method based on design requirement, but it's always a good idea to include a main method because you may need to use this main method for your debugging, for checking, for creating a sample instance and check how the method works. Then you follow the step by adding static fields, adding instance fields, and add constructors, then add setter and getter, and add business logic. So this is a very systematical way of creating a class. Let's bring up Eclipse. So I'm going to create, project is already created. So create a package. We're doing session 5. And create a class square. So as always, public, static void main string array args, and also bring this down and add java.comments. Now let me copy the question here. And make it look better, which is, this is too long. So. Now let's look at this further. So we created package framework, create a main method. There's no static field. If you need a static field, we can create one just for fun. Static, it should be public. Static final, integer. Number of sides equals to 4. Apparently, a square should have 4 sides, regardless of its size. Every square should have a 4. So this is a class level number. And I set up as a final because this should not be changed. When will a square becomes like 5 sides, right? Or you can also call it number of sides. Because this is final. This is a constant, it's a final. So that's why I decided to use all uppercase. Now, add instance fields. It says clearly that we should have a double attribute called side length. Now, without initializing, this will by default go to 0. But let's add a constructor. We can first add a no arg constructor. Q. Which will set side length equals to, let's say, 10. Right. And now I should have create a Java doc after this one is created. This may not seem apparent why I want to create the Java doc later on, but as I create a new one, you will see int side length side length equals to SL. All right. Now that I create Java doc, it tells me this parameter, right? This is a no arg constructor. And this is a constructor of square class. Okay, so we have the constructor ready. Basically, you can see square is easy, constructor is easy, just setting up variable, the instant field. Now, what's even easier is the setter and getter. And because we only have one field, so we only have one setter and one getter. Set side, oops, length. Remember, the setter is always void because it's just setting up. It's bringing in the value and set up the class instance, the instance field, and it must be public. Now, also important is the getter, and getter is getting the field, right? So I think I make a mistake here. This is not int, right? And this is not int, this double. So I'm going to get side length. Oops. By just returning here I have a return value, return side length. And finally, we got a setter and adder for each field. And finally, we add business logic method. And the business logic we talked about is get area. Apparently, we need to add modifiers like public double, right? Which should return side length times side length. And add javadoc comment. All right, so this is a complete class without any issue, right? Just by following this step by step, you quickly set up the fields and set up a constructor and set together. The only thing that might be a little bit tricky is how to implement the logic. But otherwise, it should be simple. And as this is a Java fundamental class, you will be provided with, when you are required to create a class, you will be provided by a requirement on what instance field you are going to create. And that should make add the constructor and set getter really simple. Right? All these steps really simple. So now let's go to main and try to create an instance in order to do some testing. Square S1 equals to new square, let's say 20. Now let's do a system.out.println S1.get area. We can also do another one more. S0 equals to new square. Then we will run a S0 dot set side length with 10. And here we are going to call S0 get area. So let's run. and you get 100 and 400. So this is how you create an object